Have you not watched it? Talk about cozy, you should watch that.
I know. They said the same thing. There's seven.
I love the fact that it's a very good thing.
It's so positive.
I didn't know that, and I'm sorry, because I don't need it, but if I don't need it.
The back of your bookmark is for your notes.
Oh my gosh.
Elizabeth is just so
I'm
fun.
prepared for you.
Okay, I'm gonna wait until the next 10 seconds or so the cafe to come back and then we'll get going. Look at the mark I brought you. That's true.
Wait, did you get your hot chocolate?
No, my best friend wants to go get it for him.
Oh my gosh, I had one job. I
It's
just
fine.
realized I brought mine back and neglected to bring yours.
But you were just eating your cake so
I was, I
happily.
got so excited
And my
about
friend said, "Go to the cafe for their drinks anyway."
it. I'm so very sorry. I'm happy to go get it.
They're already coming.
Okay.
I'm not concerned.
Okay.
Also, I like it not hot because I'm.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
So by the
Okay.
time it gets to me, I still probably can't drink.
Got it. Oh, that's cool.
What are you doing?
I'm just sitting here.
Your chairs.
Oh, yes. Hey, you're just very stressed.
No, I'm really glad.
The tea is just.
The chamomile.
Oh, that's the wide eye.
This will soon become cozy reading suggestions. And
My mother, this is my mother.
Okay, well, that's.
we'll just do a. John already. Interpretive reading of the Security Society. Like this is chamomile. No.
When I told me that I would eat it, it's right.
Yeah, I read the first one. And it's like, I feel like I just.
Mostly for where you can feel comforted going through hard times. You don't have to like work. Right. Oh, so that's. We'll see.
Hello, welcome everyone. We are so glad you're here. My name is Elizabeth Foster and I'm the events coordinator here at Schuler Books. And tonight we are doing Booksellers Recommend Cozy Vibes, which we are all so excited about. Our booksellers are going to introduce themselves in a minute. But before we do that, I just wanted to let you know that tonight is being recorded. We're hoping to release this on our YouTube channel after the event. Please know that none of your faces are in it, just us up here. But if you do talk out loud, it may be on the recording, so I want you to be aware. If you like events like this, we would love it if you would follow along on our social media, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, Twitter, we're on all of them. And sign up for our newsletter, which you can sign up through our website. And we send out event announcements every week there. So that's the best place to find out about events. I'm gonna have us kick off tonight by having everyone introduce themselves. Please tell us who you are.
I'm Amy. I am the assistant general manager and the used book buyer here. And I would say my specialty would be cozy romances. Romantic.
I am Megan and I am a bookseller. I run the young adult section in our teen review program. I've been here for 5.5 years now. And I mainly read cozy fantasy. That's my jam mainly. I read the romance that Amy tells me I have to. And yes, but mainly cozy fantasy, which I don't know what that is altogether. That's my jam.
So my name is Kat. I am a manager here and I run the
You
web.
not really used to part about some, I don't know.
You run online. The web order desk. And I would say my specialty, if I had one, would probably be Irish literature. Yeah.
Cozy Irish. You're a leprechaun.
Really tall leprechaun.
All right, and before we get into the book, Rex, could you tell us a little bit about how you got into book selling? Like, how do you end up doing it? You can give us the like short version if you wanna.
Well, that's no fun.
Or the lengthy one.
Book selling is a second career for me. I was in education for 20 years, early childhood education, but I have always had a love of books. There is a story in my family that my mother in the back row can confirm that as a toddler, I would walk around family gatherings and say, read a book, read a book, read a book, and just walk up to anybody with a book in my hand and see if they would read it with me. So it's not surprising that I landed in book selling after teaching.
I have always been a reader as well, and I was kind of in between my jobs. So I am part-time here and I have 2 other jobs, but I was kind of in between job searching and I just used to come here once a week on Tuesdays. And then when I said I was looking for a job, they were like, well, you should just work here. And I did, and I love it so much that I didn't give it up for my other jobs because it's just so, I love when you recommend a book to someone and then they love it and then they get to recommend it, or with young adult, especially kids come in and they're like, I don't like reading, I hate it, but my mom or grandma or someone is making me buy a book. And then I've had it where they come back in the next week and they're like, I'm here to buy the next ones, I love this book, and that's like the best. So, yes, that's why.
I have also been a lifelong reader. I got into this job because I graduated college during the pandemic, with the lockdown and everything. So I got a degree in history, which was going to be hard enough. And with the lockdown, there was nothing. The museums weren't even open and I needed a job. So I met somebody through a different career. They're like, hey, I work at Schuler's now. I think you'd be a really good fit. And I applied, and it's been about 1.5 years now that I've been here, and I have no plans on leaving. You're stuck with me.
We're happy to start with you. Yeah, I'm gonna switch microphones with you.
Mine's very quiet.
Yeah. And I'm not actually sure which one this is, so, okay, hard to adjust the volume when I can't figure out which cord it goes to. Anyway. I'll just talk louder. Okay, we're talking about cozies tonight, but we realized as we were planning this event that cozy might mean different things to different people. So you probably have a definition in your heads, and our booksellers also have definitions in their heads, and I would like the definitions in their heads to be out in the world. So again, what does cozy mean to you?
When we were talking about this, primarily cozy means like lower stakes. So you are not worried for the lives of the characters that you're reading about. More generally, we talked about like a hug quotient, like the book feels like a hug, or you just want to hug the book, not because you're sad or what. It's cozy. It feels like a warm blanket. So we had like a hug scale at one point.
Yeah.
How many hugs out of whatever.
Yes.
And I guess the low stakes part, I don't know how we talked about this like a week ago. And we had it narrowed down pretty well.
We talked about, yeah, if you want us to give a hug rating for our recommends, we can do that.
You can try.
We just, there's certain books that are cozy that feel even more cozy. But overall, especially in fantasy, you're not like, they're not at war. They're not defeating anyone. They're just like living like slice of life very much.
Yes.
And you just feel joyful and happy as you're reading it from our perspective. So that for me is definitely cozy. Like There could be some depth to it, or they might go through some hard things, but they're doing it together, and so you've got the warm fuzzies, and you feel better after reading it.
It's a lot more about the relationship of
Yes.
the characters and
That's
less about like hardcore action.
That's kind of what I narrowed down after we talked about it a little bit, because we all were very confused of like, if it's just low stakes, that's a lot of romances.
Yeah.
That's a lot of like,
Right, and how do you define, like, well, that one just feels, it has the vibes.
it's got the.
You're like, but what does that mean?
Mine is like, do I experience love in the book? And I don't mean, am I reading about love or romance? Like, do I read this book and I, as Kat Neely, feels loved and loved because of how these characters and these situations are written? So in my head, do I feel like this book loves me at the end? Which is a really weird way to put it, but
You get to make your own definition.
Exactly.
mine's if I feel the book loves me back.
And so for some of us, you'll know that we have different ratings on what we think is cozy. Like Kat recently, was like, guys, I read this book and it was so cozy, and Amy and I are both like,
I don't know.
that doesn't sound cozy to us.
She was like, I feel so loved.
There was so much. What?
And I would just cry.
Well, I even thought about the stakes, like, there are cozy mysteries, there are tons of cozy mysteries, and there's literal murders happening in those, but you don't ever like worry that the main character is going to die. And like you do in some thrillers, like there could be serious danger going on, like there's an element of comedy and like whimsy.
Yeah.
There's a lot of whimsy in cozy.
I actually also thought like how important the scenery is
Mm.
to make a book cozy. So like, I think the reason the book they're referencing for me is Foster by Claire Keegan and Shushrin. And part of the reason why I think that felt so cozy for me, it was a farm in Ireland where this was mostly taking place. So, yes, I know. So the scenery, I think, also plays like a really important part.
That's true. I think of that.
Perfect. All right, you gotta start filling up those TBR lists. So, my first question is just gonna be, what is the one book that you so desperately want to pitch tonight? And let's start it off with that.
Only one?
Yeah, I'm giving each one.
Okay,
For reference, I asked them each to tell me 3 of their favorite cozy books, and they each sent me back 6.
Amy started it. I was like, well, she didn't pick
Limiting
it.
himself is tough, but one, I would like one.
I picked one for each category. I mean,
I can go for, I know my one.
you, okay.
Multiple people in this room know mine.
I know my one too.
I know your one.
You know it. I've made you read it. I've made you read it. I've made you read it. That would be The House in the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune. It is one of my favorite books of all time. I'm wearing my house shirt today that my best friend got me for Christmas that has all the kids' names on it. But The House in the Cerulean Sea is a cozy adult cozy fantasy about a man named Linus who is a social worker, but for magical children. And he lives such a mundane life, but doesn't really realize it. Like, it's always raining, and he like goes to work and just comes home and just listens to violence with his cat, and doesn't really have any interaction except for his very grouchy, next door neighbor who like does not like him. And then one day his bosses send him to this orphanage that's on an island, and he's never even seen the ocean before. And he has to see if the 6 magical children that live there are being well cared for. So there he meets Arthur, who's the head of the orphanage, Zoe, who's the caretaker, and the 6 kids. But the problem is he wasn't allowed to read anything about the kids until he gets to the island, and he reads about the first child, and then he just straight up faints. And like, they come to collect him, and they're like, are you taking a nap? And he's like, no. And he's very scared to meet these kids, but it is so pure and wholesome, and you just feel the found family is so strong, and the kids they might dig a few graves, but they're also so adorable at the same time. But Linus, you get to kind of walk with him as he gets his life kind of turned upside down and gets to see like a new life of living. And so for me, I think I've read it 6 times, something like that. I've read it a lot. I just love it. And so that's my like number one. I'll recommend it to anyone. I don't care.
Fun story. when I got hired here, Lauren was like, you have to like this book or you can't work here. And I had never read it before, so I bought it the day that I got hired, so that I wouldn't get fired.
Yep.
Actually true. Right, she wouldn't have got fired.
Um, right, or like our coworker Haley, she finished and she wrote a little shelf talker to go with the book, and she said, I was forced to read this because I work here, but also you should also read it. So pretty much I found out about it before the book came out, and then I told all of my coworkers, and you even made the Cerulean Sea, which is our nickname for our coworkers.
Gingerbread house of the cover.
So anyway, I can talk about that, but
You want to go back?
yes, I do.
Okay.
So my one book that I think everybody should have at one point, or just leave with it tonight, is Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Faeries.
Yeah.
It's all the excitement. That book is fantastic. I adore it. I absolutely adore it. So basically you follow this just curmudgeon of a woman, Emily Wilde. She's going to basically like this Norway style place because she is writing an encyclopedia of fairies. And so she's going to different parts of the world and researching and finding out all she can so she can have this very academic encyclopedia of fairies. So she's in, I don't know how to say that place, Wisteria? Nope, I don't know. She's in a Scandinavian style place where it's snowing and she gets settled and she's not real great with people and she just wants to do her work. And she doesn't know why everybody wants her to go to the bar and meet the community. And then her academic rival, Bamblebee,
Wendell Bamblebee.
shows up. And he is very flamboyant and very like the life of the party kind of thing. And she's like, you
And
Irish.
Irish.
And Irish. Yeah, I know.
I did identify that this was for genre.
And so it is just the absolute night and day, black and white, not enemies, but just like curmudgeons to like lovers kind of trope, opposites attract. But he loves her because she's curmudgeon. Yes, like, it's not, he's like, oh, you're so adorable, and she's like, no, I'm legitimate. Yeah. And basically, they have to take on one of the higher fae that, I'm trying not to give too much away. They end up having to take on the higher fae, which is a more powerful being than she's had to deal with in the past. And, Bamblebee has a secret, and her dog has a secret. Yeah.
We love a good pet with a secret. We love
Yeah.
them.
So anyways, I also can talk about it forever. I loved it. I thought it was beautiful. It's written in a diary style. It's just so great. And I am one of the weirdos that love the snow. So like having a snow covered like sleigh bells and cozy fires was just perfect for me. So
I remember you finishing it and then you immediately showing up at work and you like, so this is what you're gonna read. And Benny and I both read it and
Yeah.
also loved it. Gave 5 stars, so good.
yep.
All right, I've decided. And you will all be shocked.
I'm gonna guess.
I haven't yet.
It is the Wisteria Society of Lady Scoundrels.
Oh, I was
in
right.
Holton.
I was right.
Because my genre is cozy romantasy, these are quintessential romantasy books. They are set in Regency England, Regency Victorian England, and they follow sort of couples, sort of like a Jane Austen type story, but they are also pirates and they fly their houses around because they have a magical incantation that they can fly their houses around. And in the first one, it was Wisteria Society of Lady Scoundrels. Cecilia just really wants to be admitted to this pirate society. And she's trying to do all of the dastardly things that pirates have to do to become admitted to this society, which is all female pirates. And an assassin shows up and keeps trying to kill her, but also he's very handsome and also kind of flamboyant and maybe a double agent, you know. And so they just sort of go back and forth. At one point, there's a scene in a hallway. They're like literally trying to kill each other, but also they're admitting their feelings to each other. It's like The Princess Bride meets Pride and Prejudice, or Bridgerton and Pirates of the Caribbean, sort of. All, a little Monty Python, they're just all rolled into one. It's hilarious. All sorts of references to other literature. This, I think there's a lot of Shakespeare in the first one. The second one, League of Gentlemen and Witches, includes witches and pirates fighting over or trying to get a magical medallion. And there's also Jane Austen references, which just I wanted to climb inside that book and never leave. So even though there's like threats of death and assassination, you don't actually think that Ned is going to kill somebody, because obviously we like each other.
Well, and some of the ladies are like, take a hit out of them each other because they're mad. They're like, okay, but I'll see you at tea in a few hours.
Right.
Like, it's not for real.
I mean, it's all, the tongue is so far in the cheek. It's hilarious.
Yes.
That is actually how I met you.
It is, oh my gosh.
Yeah, Amy, I can hear the story. Amy recommended that book to me because I loved the cover, but I had never really been a big romance reader. And I was like, what do you think? And she goes, it's the best. And a year and a half later, we're friends.
There you go. I also was forced to read both of them.
And forced.
Okay. Doesn't take much arm-twisting to get them to read books, especially in the cozy genre. I think that one of the hallmarks of the cozy genre, in my opinion, is inclusivity. And along those lines, I've heard murmurings in the world that adults should read adult books and kids should read kids' books. And I would like your opinion on, am I allowed to shop around to the whole store? Or do I have to-
100%.
Yeah, so can you maybe define the different categories that you might see in the store and like why it might be beneficial to look around a little?
Yes. So you'll have your adult fiction categories of romance and fantasy and mystery and general fiction and nonfiction. You've got young adult, which is like ages 12, 13 and up,
Yeah.
sort of. And then
But yes, mainly high school-ish.
and then you've got intermediate readers, which are usually grades 3 through 8 or so, give or take. And then you've got early readers, chapter books and things for a little bit younger. One of the books that I was going to say was the one I think everybody should read. It's called the Ogress and the Orphans by Kelly Barnhill. It is an intermediate reader. So in that, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th grade range, it is the most beautiful story about the power of stories to connect people that I have ever read, ever. Kelly Barnhill is just a master with beautiful lyrical language, but this story is like a fable about what it means to be a good neighbor, what it means to live in community with people who might be different from you, but also about the power of books and the power of story. And I think that's what I would tell anybody who's like, I don't read kids' books. Stories are universal and we can all learn from all different kinds of stories. And especially the way that they are portrayed in children's books, you can so just easily picture either yourself or people you know characterized somehow, because they're made to represent what's going on and help children understand what's going on in the world, so they can just as easily help us understand. Like, honestly, go and read Ogress and the Orphans. It is phenomenal if you want to know how to like love your neighbor, just in the most general.
Yeah, so being in charge of YA for so long now, as an adult, I read so much of it. And so there are so many crossovers where like House in the Cerulean Sea, for instance, is adult, but it also kind of feels middle grade. You can give the kids, and content wise, I can recommend that to anyone, even, middle schoolers or whatever, but, cozy fantasies in YA are a little bit harder to come by because in YA, often they are very fast paced, lots of action, things like that. I would say my favorites are the ones by F.T. Lukens. So This Is Ever After and In Deeper Waters. And both of them, I just felt insanely happy while reading them. I'll mainly highlight, So This Is Ever After. That one is a kind of twist on the chosen one trope. So our main crew and characters, our main character has been sent out to kill this horrible king and, to save their land. Well, that happens in like the first chapter. And because he's the chosen one, and so he gets all his whole group of friends, and they kind of achieve this together. And then they kind of forgot to save the princess so she could rule. So they're like, oh, okay. So our main character, they're like, just be king for like 2 days while we go find her. It'll all be fine. And this happens right at the beginning, so it's not spoilery, but the princess has been dead for a very long time. And so now he is forced to rule as the chosen one, but he's like, this is not what I'm supposed to do. And also there's a curse where if he doesn't get married soon, like it'll bring ruin to the land. And so it's very fun and dramatic. So he, being the innocent young person he is like, you know what? He has a crush on his best friend, but he's not sure that that's gonna happen. So he's like, I'm just gonna try and win over all of my friends. And so it is hysterical and funny because they obviously all love him, but it's just such a joy to read. And I'm just like smiling, my cheeks hurt because I'm just smiling because it's both ridiculous and so fun, but also has that deep level of like found family, a heartfelt story, characters you want to root for. So I love that one for YA, and I feel like that would be great definitely for adults too. I think young adult for me has this like coming of age in so many of the books, like our characters are kind of coming into who they are. And I wish we saw that more in adult, because even though I'm an adult, I feel like I'm still kind of coming into age sometimes too. And so I enjoy reading those.
So I'm gonna go real young. I really enjoy children's picture books. And I absolutely think that adults can still benefit from those because of the simple fact that they are meant to give important, like, core lessons in a little person, in a very loving and affectionate way. So for example, I really love The Blue House by Phoebe Wahl. She also wrote, was it Little Witch Hazel?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Which, beautiful illustrations. So the illustrations alone are like feeding those cozy vibes to begin with. But it's a story about this single dad, like you never see a mom, and his son, and they're moving. And the little boy is very upset because this is his home. Why would we leave our home when this is where I've been the whole time? And he just doesn't want things to change, which I think all of us sympathize with. And so when they get to the new home, the dad's like, it's okay. Change is normal. We had to make decisions, but there's nothing stopping us from making this a home too. And you realize that home is the people that you love and the things you love doing. So they make it feel a little bit more like home by putting on records and dancing together and painting the bedroom and making it their own space. So even though it's a children's book, it's a children's picture book, it still has that very important lesson of home is yours. And it's your space, and it's what you put into it, what you take out of it, the people that you love in it. So I don't know, I'm 35 and I still get lessons from kids' books where I'm like, wow, this is wonderful.
I add one more aspect to that.
Absolutely.
I think another thing that we have all, the three of us and many others in staff, have gotten more into graphic novels and manga, which I think is sometimes misunderstood or looked down on as like not literature or not really reading. We'll have parents come in and say like, no more graphic novels.
I want a real book that, yeah, they want them to read.
Right, I want them to read. They're still reading. You're still just getting more visual information, but you're still reading. And I think a lot of us, like the Tea Dragon Society, graphic novels or children's graphic novel, they are the coziest, most adorable story of these tiny little dragons that they break off little bits of themselves basically that help make tea, and it's just the coziest little community. Lightfall is
Lightfall. Yeah, Lightfall is so far it's 2 middle grade graphic novels, but it's about this young girl and her adoptive dad kind of goes missing, and so they have to go on this magical adventure to save him, and she takes this adventure with this person who's a creature that they thought to be extinct. And the illustrations are incredibly stunning, and the story is also Lightfall. Yep, it's one word. But those are also children's stories, but it's about family and what is it to have new friends and to go on an adventure, even though you're scared, but you're doing it for the person you love, which as an adult, I learned so much from those ones.
Hey, Kat, you want to talk about some novels?
I do want to talk about some manga.
Do you want to talk about a manga that you read and then you proceeded to give us, and then we all read it and became obsessed?
And then I made you all eyeglass chains to go with it.
I think Rin actually started this, didn't you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, it was Rin. She's off camera. They're off camera, but
it's their fault.
So we all are currently absolutely obsessed with a manga called The Savior's Book Cafe Story in Another World. It's on your bookmark. If you don't have all the words or the space. So basically, it is about a 30-something-year-old woman, which is really awesome, because I think all of us are over in our 20s.
We are all over 30.
You're all over the.
We are not all 30 something, but we are all over 30.
There we go. None of us are in our 20s. So basically, this woman, is an age group that you don't normally see in manga, which is really nice. But basically, she's chosen by this being who basically goes by God. And this being says, I have chosen you to be a savior of another world. And she goes, no, thank you. Because her life is settled. She's got a good job. She's got a good apartment. You know, she's pretty okay with what's going on in her life. And he goes, you don't have a choice. You have to go. So she gets sent into this world with magical powers. There's some deal making going on because she's smarter than a more experienced than a 19-year-old. I shouldn't say smarter, but I love smart 19-year-olds. She asks more questions than any of the other saviors, and goes very prepared with all of her magic intact. And she gets there and she's like, I'm gonna open a cafe with magically protected books, and I'm gonna sit in the woods and let everybody figure out their own problems, because I didn't ask for this. So she sits in a cafe all day and reads her books. And then the captain of the guard shows up, and he's very handsome, he's very nice, and he's also a bookworm, and they develop a relationship. And he draws her out of the woods, and she starts helping in very small ways. So it's this beautiful growth book. We all were obsessed that her books are magic, so you can't spill anything on them, and they cannot catch fire. Which I was very jealous about. I know.
And the next volume just like magically appeared when you finished the one.
When he got done with the book, and she goes, oh, I have the other one right here. And the book magically shows up. So, but that's also a story of like personal growth. And even when you feel like you're at an age where things are settled, you put roots down, you can still grow. You can still, find strength in yourself that you didn't know you had. And it comes from a manga. I would also like to add that with graphic novels, for people who have trouble with reading comprehension, it's known to help. Or if you have dyslexia, it's also known to help because the pictures help get you context when you might normally get lost in words. So reading
Reading is reading, no
Reading is
matter what.
That includes audiobooks.
Yeah.
yes, definitely.
Absolutely. All right, I'm actually gonna start involving our audience. So can I get a volunteer who would maybe tell us 2 to 3 books that they have loved in the cozy genre, and then our booksellers will give you a recommendation of those. We'll have a volunteer. I see one in the back.
I have one,
Yeah, go for it.
lessons in chemistry.
So you've loved lessons in chemistry, and you're looking for something that you may love as much.
That's by Bonnie.
Garmus.
Yep, that's right.
I will admit, I started that book and I got stuck on a certain scene and didn't get past it because it was a not so cozy scene. Really.
That's fair. Okay, can you tell us why you loved lessons in chemistry?
I liked that it was lighthearted even during the harder scenes.
Yeah. And it's set in the 50s.
Yeah.
And a woman is a chemist, and gets kind of recruited or convinced to have a cooking show. So lighthearted, like a little cooking women, smart women.
What's the romance book, Amy, where they are on a cooking show contest? Oh, yeah.
Homer takes
Yeah.
Not that one. Anita Kelly wrote it.
Love and Other
Love and Other Disasters, thank you. I can think of the author and not the title. So Love and Other Disasters is a romance between a young woman and a non-binary character who are on an amateur cooking show, and they have to sort of face off against each other. It's hilarious. I love that one. I would also recommend books by Ruth Hogan. I have Keeper of Lost Things listed on here, but she's got a couple other ones. Queenie Malone's Hotel, something hotel.
Yeah.
Good Lord. Anyway, Ruth Hogan, she would meet that aspect of like, it stays lighthearted even though it's dealing with heavier content. So like the Keeper of Lost Things is about an old guy who collects lost items. And he gets an assistant, who is also sort of lost in her life. And when he passes away, he leaves his entire house to his assistant, and she sort of has to go through all of this stuff and see if she can help connect lost items with their owners. There's a really nice relationship with a neighbor. It has that same sort of like keeping it light and like a hug, even though it's dealing with a little bit heavier.
Wow, that's fair. What about going off of that? What about smart women? Do you have a recommendation for cozy and smart women?
Hazelwood.
Tell us about her.
I'm sorry, I'm so excited. Allie Hazelwood has written, Love on the Brain. She wrote
Love Hypothesis.
Love, thank you. And then she's coming out with Love Theoretically, which will come out, I think, in June this year. So my favorite is Love on the Brain. Thank you, Amy. Amy, read that. So basically that follows the Königswasser, who is a very, very smart neuroscientist, and she gets recruited by NASA to go work on a helmet that's going to help astronauts. I'm going to be honest, I'm not a scientist, but basically it helps them function back in space. The helmet that helps them operate machinery and things. And she is paired up with Levi Ward, who was the biggest bully to her in grad school, wouldn't talk to her, wouldn't look at her, refused to work with her, and now she has to work with him. It is in the romance category, so sparks do fly. It is an enemies to lovers thing, but I think Allie Hazelwood is absolutely hilarious. She is actually a scientist. I don't know what kind of scientist she is. So when she talks about the science, the different scientific things in her book, she knows what she's talking about because she's got a PhD. So smart books about smart women written by a smart woman, Allie Hazelwood.
I would also say if you like mysteries that are a little bit historical, the Veronica Speedwell mysteries by Deanna Raybourn. Yes, Deanna Raybourn is the author. The first book is called The Curious Beginning, but the main character is Veronica Speedwell, who I would like to be when I grow up. Again, it takes place in Victorian England. She is a lepidopterist, so she likes to collect butterflies, but she is someone who gives no F at all about what society thinks she should do as a young woman in Victorian England. She's like, I'm going to live my life. I'm going to make my own choices. And she's very, very smart. She studies all sorts of things, not just butterflies. She gets paired up with Stoker, who is the grumpiest former Navy captain who just wants to stay in his little warehouse and do his taxidermy. And they just keep getting thrown into situations where they have to like solve murders. They're literally just tripping over bodies. It's very, very slow burn romance. Romance is not the focus of the plot at all. But they have to use all of their skills and knowledge, and it's literally just Veronica sort of dragging Stoker along because he wants to protect her, but she doesn't really need any protecting. She can take care of herself. But she likes having a partner to like figure things out and solve crimes. They're fantastic.
Does anyone else have comfort TV shows? I have comfort TV. Can someone tell me what their comfort TV show is?
Mine is The Office.
The Office. If someone's comfort TV show is The Office, do you have a book recommendation?
I've never watched The Office.
I know. Do you at least know what it's about?
I do.
Or do you need to describe? Yeah, it's thank you, husband.
So what's the book with office titles? Cause that's what I think of as.
I was Jimmy White.
Yeah.
I exist in the world.
I'm like, there's something going on there, just living out there.
On TikTok, I know what things are.
Do you think E. Brown could give those vibes of the kind of workplace, but the humor of it?
Yeah,
Maybe? I think you would like it. No, Eve Brown is it's not set in an office, but it is the
Dan
third.
Brown serves that office workplace.
That one's the best. There's,
Agreed.
it is the Brown Sisters trilogy of romances by Talia Hibbert. We were trying to debate which ones were cozy and which ones were not, but definitely the third one, Eve Brown, she is the youngest of these three sisters. And this one is kind of more of cozy setting, kind of by an inn. And she falls for this guy and then runs him over with her car. And I'm not talking a like little like love tap. I mean like to the hospital. And the two of them kind of give me a little less creepy like Ryan and Kelly vibes. But in a more like healthy way, if that makes any sense. But that one is more cozy and it's a cozy steamy romance. So
I just thought of one. Do you like sci-fi at all? Okay. Have you read anything by Becky Chambers?
oh.
Long Way to a Small Angry Planet is the first of the series. It is a group of like misfit crew on a spaceship mission, slice of life, very cozy. It is the first of what, four or five? But it's sort of like if you've ever watched the show Firefly back in the day, it has that kind of vibes because it's just a bunch of different creature characters, but like they're all trapped in a like on a spaceship, sort of like in an office, and they're like living and working together and they don't all get along and they're going a long way to a planet on a spaceship. So I think that would definitely give office hours.
And maybe like her other series, Murderbot, is about not liking your job?
Not the same author.
Not the same author. I'm sorry, so sorry.
Nope.
So sorry.
I mean, if you
Different.
want to set me up to talk about Becky Chambers' other books, I'll accept. So my other top cozies are The Monk and Robot. Well, it's currently 2 books by Becky Chambers. They are short novellas and you follow there is a tea monk and they live in the city and they're just not feeling the city. So they become a traveling tea monk, to which they go to a village, people can come and they will brew the perfect tea for that person.
If I wasn't a bookseller, that would be my job.
You would be amazing at that. Even if I don't like tea, you would buy one for me.
Even Rachel, I would make.
But you know, even them doing traveling tea, that's still not enough. They want to go into the wilderness and know what the crickets sound like when they sing. But on this journey, they meet a robot who have not interacted with humans in 5 centuries because they gained consciousness and they didn't want to work in factories. And so the humans were like, okay, and they just disappeared. But then the robot comes back and asks these more challenging, deep questions about like, how does humanity feel about this? And our team monk is like, well, I'm just one person. And the 2 of them then go on this beautiful journey to kind of answer these questions. So it makes you think deeply about how would you answer these questions. And then in book 2, Mouse Camp, our robot, gets the exciting journey of talking to a lot more humans. And Oh, they're so good. They're not like the Office at all, I'm sorry.
Okay. All right, there were a couple other comfort TV shows. Somebody else have one?
Well, the one that I watched repeatedly, if anything Star Trek, but specifically Lower Decks because it's low stakes and it's animated and it's funny. But it is, I was thinking though, when you were saying that, it is kind of like The Office, it's basically a workplace.
Yeah. Fair, okay, so we kind of
We
coming
want to talk about murder box?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so speaking of Murder Bout, which
Yeah,
was mentioned
good to throw off here.
by Martha Wells. Most of the series right now, there's currently, I think, 6. Most of them are short novellas. There's a longer novella or a longer story, and then the next, there's another one coming out. But Murderbot follows a robot, and they, without too many spoilers, they normally associate with murder. But instead, they would rather watch their soap opera that they're currently so obsessed with, and are struggling to like find all the episodes to watch and binge them, without like doing their responsibilities. So it's very relatable. They want to watch the soap opera and make friends with humans and go on short adventures. And so it's fascinating, but it's definitely like high fantasy or high sci-fi, set in space, on spaceships, and each kind of novella, they're going on a different adventure, and it's so fun. And there are some times where like you're really emotionally invested and you care about the humans and you come to care about Murderbot so much. But it's still cozy, and it would have kind of those Star Trek going to different places, different worlds, just through the what is that word? Perspective. Thank you. Of a robot who loves to read.
All right, anybody else want to give me a book or two that they loved and get a recommendation for? I'm gonna go this way, sorry.
I really liked The Very Secret Society of a Regular Witcher and House of Cerulean. I really liked the family and how all the second, like all the secondary characters had such like wacky personalities. I love this.
I was just gonna try to recommend Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches.
Can you describe it in 6 words?
No.
No. Cozy.
Family. Cozy found family.
Witch
Young
tutor.
witches?
Witch tutor.
Witch tutor.
Oh, plus grumpy librarian.
Librarian, can't forget the grumpy librarian. And it's secret. That's the title, sorry. It is though, it is secret.
So what else has found family? There's other,
What doesn't have?
and good side characters.
Have you read Legends and Lattes or Can't Tell Trees Without Tea?
Everything can't tell you about it right now.
This one.
Not read Legends of Confidence.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, it was my top of the year.
Anybody want to give the elevator?
I can
Do it now.
Okay. So Legends and Lattes is about a mercenary who has decided that she no longer wants to be a mercenary. She wants more out of life. So she sets up a coffee shop in the middle of this town that doesn't know what coffee is. And she has to build up the shop, and while building up the shop, he makes friends and has this like lovely, perfect, everything falls together. I would really, really like one of those biscuits and cookies out of that book kind of things.
Cinnamon rolls.
The big. So basically it is a woman who, by all accounts, I think she's more like an orc, is how she's drawn on the cover. Doesn't look like somebody who would be like a loving, what's the word, like genial, welcoming person.
She's a little bit intimidating looking.
She's very
Because
muscular.
she's a warrior.
Because she's, yes. So it really flips like perceptions of people on its head. Yeah, actually, it does that a lot with a lot of the characters, like you expect them, most of them, you expect them to be one thing either because of what they fit in as in mythology or by how they look, and it just turns it on its head, and you're like, no, actually, I'm a little tougher than you expected. Or sweeter.
I would say there are a lot of romance series that have that, because romance series often will like, you meet one character, but they have a group of friends, family, and then you like move on to the next character. My favorite is Sarah McLean, who writes her new series Bombshell and Heartbreaker. It's like this girl gang trying to take down smarmy men, historical figures. They're very, very smart and they watch out for each other and those are great. I wouldn't necessarily say they're super cozy. They're a little more action packed, Sarah McLean's, but
Would you say,
Felicity Adams would be kind of a cozy found family. She writes the romance book club books. So it's a group of guys who are reading romance novels to like learn more about relationships, which is great. I've only read 2 of them out of the 4 or 5 now. I also, what's that? 5, yeah, 5. Yeah, I'm not.
So mine's not particularly cozy, but it is found family. It's All Our Hidden Gifts by Carolyn O'Donoghue. Don't laugh at me, Megan.
I'm not laughing.
I get fixation
He
with
recommends this one.
Oh, I know, but it's so good. Fixate, it's okay. So basically, All Our Hidden Gifts is about this young girl who is not really popular. She's not hated. She's just kind of floating through high school. And so she'll act out every once in a while to get attention. And one of these acting out moments gets her detention where she has to clean the basement of her old school's like creepy school, like building. And when she's down there, she finds a tarot deck. And she starts reading tarot cards for people and realizes she's actually kind of good at it. And her ex-best friend, which you don't know why they're not friends anymore, you just know that this girl hates her now, comes up and says, "What, you read my fortune?" She goes, "No, I don't want to do that." And she's like, "Why? You're so good at running your mouth all the time," like kind of goading her. And so she gives her a fortune. And one of the cards that pops out is not a traditional tarot deck card. She doesn't know what it is, but the next day her best friend goes missing. And she has to find her best friend. It is the found family trope because she becomes friends with it takes place in Ireland. I don't want anybody to make me jokes. But she makes friends with a non-Irish woman, I believe she's Filipino, who is kind of rejected because that stuff happens in a lot of countries, but they find each other and they become good friends. And she becomes friends with the lost best friend's sibling who's exploring their sexuality and their gender at the time. And they form this very tight-knit group trying to find her because they start to trust each other. And it is filled with magic, which is one of my favorite things. So yeah, I would recommend All Our Hidden Gifts if you like found family and magic and culty stuff.
I would say, okay, my recommend is like 1 or 2 hugs on the cozy scale, but The Raven Cycle by Maggie Stiefvater. Okay, well, you're not because you've already read it, but for those of you who haven't read it, that one is one of my favorite found families. It is a challenging to describe series because it sounds really weird, but it is about 4 friends that go to a private school together, and one of them is on the hunt for this dead Welsh king. And there is this fascinating magic system, and then you have the 4 of them who meet a girl named Blue, whose mom and aunt are psychics. And she's always been told that the first person, like the first love that she kisses, will die. And so she kind of joins this found family of the 5 of them, and a lot of them have had challenging family situations, and so they kind of bond together. That is, the Raven Cycle itself is 4 books, and then there's a spin-off trilogy based off of one of the main characters in the first trilogy and his brothers. And all 7 of them are wonderful. So fantastic. Do it.
I just thought of one more.
Okay.
The Strange Case of the Alchemist's Daughter by Theodora Goss. It's the beginning of a trilogy, but I think the first one could be read just by itself as well.
Oh yeah.
But it's basically about the daughters of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, who team up with other daughters of famous monsters and scientists in literature.
So it's like Justine, it's the Panther Woman from Island of Dr. Moreau.
Yes, so you've got all of these daughters of mad scientists basically coming together to save each other from dangers, and they sort of collect collect daughters of mad scientists along the way, so the family grows and grows, but they all have something that their parent has sort of experimented with, so they've all got something going on, but delightful.
Awesome. Okay, there was a hand back here.
Yes, Eternal by Lisa Caroline.
Okay. And what is it, like, a theme or something that you liked in that book?
It's set during the Holocaust and, well, I like it because it's cozy to me because, you learn about people like working hard and never this awful environment. And, you learn about different countries and how they helped them down. But some historical fiction.
Yeah,
And also just like, of course, it's a little romance and.
yeah. So historical fiction, people escape,
Yeah.
they're getting out of the hard situations, not staying in them. Some heavier topics, but some cozy vibes.
So it's kind of more Kat's definition of cozy, where you feel super loved reading it, but, and it's present day, but it has some history, but, that would be All My Rage by Sabbath Here. Yes, it won the National Book Award, and the Printz Award, and it is one of my favorite books, I've ever read. It follows, you have 3 perspectives, so, you have one that's set in the past in, Pakistan, and then you have currently our 2 main characters, are teens in the Mojave Desert, and they are Pakistani immigrants, and both of them are currently, at the beginning of the book, they're not friends anymore, but you know that they have been best friends. And both of them are going through very hard situations independently of each other now. And you as the reader know how much they need each other, right? You know that they need to solve this and they can get through it all together, but they're not there yet. And so you get to kind of follow them on both of their journeys. So there are some hard moments, definitely, but it has that hopefulness written throughout it, which I think adds that kind of cozier, or you're definitely like feeling love throughout the book, and you see the love the characters have for each other, even in those like really hard and challenging moments, because I totally cried reading that book a lot. So, but I recommend that one so highly.
You cried during almost all.
Okay, I cried during a lot of the cozy books too, because I will like, if I'm too happy, like I cry in House of the Cerulean Sea every single time. Like I'm just too happy. I can't keep it in, you know?
So do you like books that we get to learn about other cultures?
Yeah.
Okay,
That.
it's not cozy, but it's my turn.
I know.
No, okay, I would choose, but I think that they would fit with that.
Yeah, I like it. Okay, cool, we're in this. Okay, so this is my current fixation read. It's called Realm of Lore and Lies by Claire Wright. Rin, you can't sit in here if you're gonna react to everything. Thank you so much. I talk to Rin every day. So, basically it's about this young girl who, is in a part of a group of travelers in Ireland, which is like the Roma. They're a nomadic group of people. And they are very stigmatized in Irish culture. So she is raised in this community, but what outsiders don't know is they're actually an ancient group of warriors called the Fianna, who have contact with the Fae. They're called the Tuatha. They used to be gods, and as time went on, they became just very powerful fairies. And this is all 100% Irish folklore. Like this is what people in Ireland grow up learning about and hearing about, like we learned Sleeping Beauty and Snow White. So she freaks out on her mom because she's going to be the matriarch one day. And so she runs away. And when she comes back, her clan is gone. So she's raised by outsiders. And when she is in her 20s, her mom is murdered and she has to solve the mystery of who killed her mom. So it's similar in that it's not that cozy vibe. But as she comes back and starts finding out who trusts her, who can she rely on, who can she start to believe in again, including her foster family that took her in, you have those heartwarming moments of she remembers how she's loved, why she's loved, what matters, what's important. And along the way, because Claire Wright is Irish and she spent 14 years, like 12 or 14 years researching this, it is actual Irish folk and fantasy, like genuine mythology from that country. Yeah.
What was the name of the book again?
It's called Realm of Lore and Lies by Claire Wright. It will be a trilogy, and the second one comes out sometime this year.
Okay, I have two, and I'll make them very quick because I know we're getting closer to the end of our time frame. The one that would fit with sort of the World War II setting is by Kristen Harmel. It's called The Book of Lost Names. Did you? Okay. Then I won't go on and on about that one, but it's, about a young Jewish woman who escapes and starts helping with forging documents to get other children out of occupied territories. So, and then she wants to keep their identities from being completely lost, and so they like encode the original names of all of these children in this book. And there's a romance, and it's very good, but it also is kind of sad. The other one is my favorite historical fiction of all time, which is called The Bookwoman of Troublesome Creek by Kim Michelle Richardson. There's also a sequel that came out last year called The Bookwoman's Daughter, which I actually think is cozier than the first one. But The Bookwoman of Troublesome Creek is about a young woman in like 1930s Kentucky who lives in the hill country of Kentucky. And she is one of the last truly blue people of Kentucky, which was caused by a blood disorder that literally turned their skin blue. And so they were ostracized for being colored, even though they were Caucasian, but they looked blue. And so they were, other. And she goes through quite a lot of traumatic experiences, but I feel like the book does a really nice job of balancing the difficult content with more like hopeful content and perseverance. She becomes a bookwoman, and she goes and rides a horse around in the hill country and brings books to the kids and the families that can't necessarily make it in town. And then the second book is about her daughter, who is sort of, again, having a coming of age sort of thing and finding her place as one of the last blue people as times are changing. So it's in the 50s instead of in the 30s. But they're so beautifully written. I've read Bookwoman of Troublesome Creek 3 times now. It was one of our best book club discussions. I mean, it's just a really, really lovely historical fiction.
Lovely. Yeah, we're gonna go over time a little bit, but we're gonna wrap this up soon. Do you want to get to the last handbook? We still have. Yeah, I love mooncakes and lumber chains and like all tomorrow Peters.
Oh,
That's all you do.
I was gonna say Pumpkinheads. Have you heard Pumpkinheads? Okay, so Pumpkinheads is just the coziest, like Halloween fall graphic novel, young adult graphic novel about these two teenagers who have worked at a pumpkin patch for 4 years together. And it's like their last night before they're going to be going off, like it's the last Halloween they'll work before they go off to college. And they basically are just going on this quest of basically exploring this pumpkin patch together, but it's in search of something. And I don't want to give away what that is, but it's just, I got to the end and was like, it's just the coziest,
Yeah. It's so sweet.
sweetest, loveliest story. Yeah, that's the first one that popped into my head for.
And then Girl from the Sea.
Yeah.
Yeah, you read that one. That one is about, really short. It's just about a girl who finds a girl that came from the sea, and their relationship as it grows, and it's just so cute and wholesome. What else? I mean, Heartstopper is kind of cozy, but it gets, as you go, it gets less cozy.
Oh, what is the one called?
Okay.
I do love a cozy graphic novel. Sorry, what was your other, what's the last one?
Tomorrow Pierce. Literally all of her books. I've read them like almost every year. I reread a portion of them since middle school.
What do you love about her books?
So fantasy, a sense of purpose and belonging, and queerness.
the one that I was looking for is called The Magic Fish. It's a graphic novel. Don't know who it's, I can't remember who it's by. But it is about a young boy who is like a first generation American Vietnamese, I believe. And he is queer and he's trying to come out to his mom, but doesn't have the language for it. And he and his mom have a tradition of like reading each other fairy tales to help her learn English. And it's through like telling these stories that are familiar to both of them that he sort of comes to find the language to like be himself with his family. It's really beautiful. The Magic Fish.
I just bought that, so it's like gonna go on the top of my list. Love that. Love that.
That is amazing.
All right, we're gonna end here, and just so you know, when we end, the registers are going to be open. If you need help finding any books in the store, let us know.
A lot of the ones we talked about.
Are on that table right there.
But let us know, because we did divert off the cozy train.
Yeah.
But we can find the other
Fair.
less.
Okay, rapid fire. Is there one more book that you just really wanted to plug? And you should there's chance to.
Yes, The Comfort Book by Matt Haig. It's a nonfiction self-help book, but it's basically a collection of tiny little snippets that will just give you a hug whenever you need it. He is very open about his struggles with depression and mental health. And so it's just a collection of things that make him happy. One is literally a recipe for making a peanut butter sandwich. But then it's just, you can open it up to any page and find something that will just encourage you a little bit.
Yes, Anger, Wisdom for Cooling the Flames by Thich Nhat Hanh, is a really lovely book about not suppressing your anger. I do sometimes struggle with that, and I would like to not. And so it's really lovely, grounded, non-judgmental ways of thinking about your anger, dealing with it, how to put it in a healthy place and consider it in a healthy way, so you can use it as a growth tool rather than something that interferes with your life. And just the way he writes it is so gentle. It feels like everything is just such a teachable, like Mr. Miyagi style love and patience.
What was the name of that?
That is called Anger, Wisdom for Cooling the Flames. Thank you.
I think, well, a few of you mentioned more of the like coziness, but in hard times. And to that, I'm on the TJ Klune train, you guys. So I love Under the Whispering Door by TJ Klune as well. That one is very different than House, in that our main character has died. So he dies in like the beginning of the second chapter,